And start. So, yeah, we're talking about jokes. It started as a joke. The entire research started as a joke. And we were talking about idle games. And we're a lot of people. It's, me, and then Sultan, and Andrew, and Jessica, and Lennart, who is here, and Z, who is here, and Teresa. And it's also involving a bunch of institutions that I'm not going to read all out now, if it's all fine with you. But it was nice. We were all coming together. You might be wondering, or some of you might be wondering, what are idle games? They're like, well, we're playing one right now. If you look at the smaller corner, we're currently counting up a slide progress. Basically, we're allocating resources, and in this case, we're allocating slides. And it's going to be exciting as much as it can be in this context. So, what was our motivation? Like, why would you look into games? I mean, these games are called like trash or like gutter culture, as one of our participants called it. They are like tacit engagements, they're mobile. And we were like, we really like them. And there's interesting things happening in that space. We play like Kittens game a lot, like at least Z and Tess also like. There is a book about that, how it's just like to play Kittens game. And we were also interested in the experience and gameplay that happens there. These are games with like tacit engagements, and you can see more about the player experience in Cutting et al. From this year. And I think, is that you? Yeah, and it's an interesting paper if you're like really into idle games. And they say we are basically busy doing nothing, and others say you're kind of like waiting to play. So what did we do? We did do interviews. We played a bunch of games in the mode of like playing well, like critical reading, critical playing, and like deep engagements. And we looked at receptions, like basically, we looked at a bunch of articles that were talking about these games, and then we did a thematic analysis on them. As you see, the slide progress is getting up, so is my speed. And you have heard a lot about thematic analysis, so I don't have to explain the specifics anymore. But here you can see our steps that we did and how we did them. We were just praised so much for the transparency of our methods that I also wanted to show that here. And then, we also really, really like playing these games. It's fun for us. It's a fun that we don't necessarily understand, but that's our position from which we came into this, which matters when you do, like, positionality matters. And so we looked at 13 games that we played, basically all of us, and then we looked at 26 popular texts that were discussing these games, 10 per minute, 6 interviews, and they were conducted via chat and video. That was well timed. So our participants were, on the one hand, Lucas Mills, who was involved in Tap Titans and Tap Titans 2. We had Grumdrake, who did Progress Quest, one of the very early ones. They're games that play themselves. Jay Collins, who did Space Plan, and Bloodriser, who did Kittens game, which probably inspired the Kittens crypto game as well. Frank Glantz, Universal Paperclips, that made a big buzz. And then Ian Bogo's Cow Clicker, I couldn't play that other than this way. We're now on mega slides because they are magenta, which is a paradigm shift. We have encountered a paradigm shift where a resource of slides changed into a different resource. We, went down, so to speak. And these these paradigm shifts are usually embedded in a narrative. This is one of our themes that we could establish. So what Bloodriser says there is, my favorite concept is an idea of paradigm shift, especially when you are not aware of it. In Candy Box, another idle game, you start with a single button and end with an RPG system. Inventory and world map, In Sandcastle Builder, another game, you start with a single picture and end with time travel and industrial production of sand. This is something I try to replicate and crank up to 11. So what that entails is like that there are stories that are told through the allocation of resources. And but it's also kind of like funny. Jake Holland said, well, obviously it started as sort of a joke, sort of highlighting video games or Skinner boxes, just sort of dressed up, and I think that's great how that happened. And it just, like, it usually starts with like an idea of like, how far can I go? That's what we also found, like, what do these developers do, what designers in the author game kind of like version that's the same person. And it's just, it gets even absurder. It's not even cows or the absence of cows. It's just pictures of cows. It's ridiculous. But it's not more ridiculous than anything. Players imbued them with meaning and collective meaning. They recognize those meanings, is how Ian Bogost said. But since the cow-capolypse, rapture, all have been raptured. There are no cows anymore. So you play with the absence of cows. And also personal play was a motivator for design. Frank Land said, I wanted something simple to execute because I started Universal Paperclips as a kind of an exercise in programming, improving my programming skills, and I'm not a great programmer, so I wanted something simple, and I didn't read the rest. Because time. But like essentially, yeah, he said he wanted something simple, and he realized very fast it got more complex than that, and now you have a side note. So his wife did the math. One of the reasons why I started working on kittens was because I was sick of games like Puppy Clicker or Something Clicker set by Bloodriser. So what we see is also that a lot of these enthusiastic designers are playing these games and then use the scent as a motivator. They're like, there could be something different there. I want to create something different. So it comes from that they engage with these games. And then people are also trying to be careful. Like Jake Holland said, of course, it is by nature so addictive. I just summarize. It's so addictive. Like they're trying to be careful about addiction, at least some of them, and they're trying to like engage modes where you can stop playing and have like a moment of letting it go. They have some microtransactions or like some way of paying it either as like the full game or like repeatedly or as donations or not anymore or forgetting about it. And they also offer non-committal invitations to play. So it's like you can play, but the game basically goes forward without you. You're invited to participate, but you're not at the center of the world. You're a spectator. So it's some kind of like spectator play, but you have agency over it, but you don't have to. The game doesn't care. It's about the game, not the player, so to speak, because you're decentering the player. I'm so glad. We leveled up power slides. They're purple. So what we did is we then tried to go to, like, what does this mean for the genre, having talked to all these designers. So we tried a little bit of refining the genre, not only on interactivity, but like also on what happens there. So at the one hand, you have like the decentering of the player and the busy doing nothing and the waiting to play and the short bursts of engagement. But on the other hand, we could identify something that has been little discussed previously, which is like that there are narrative systems and systematic narratives, that there is exploration and that there is carpentry. What we mean with carpentry is like these games do philosophy, at least if you want to. Like there is a tension between exploitative mechanisms and art forms, but some of them do philosophy. And we had some design insights that we also packed into guidelines. And they center on like taking care by design through active reflection, that designers could plan for systematic narrative arcs and could care for creating like these safe places for exploration where you come back, but where you can explore without making a mistake because the game plays for itself. So yeah, this is game over, so thank you. Stay in touch.
Thank you, and congratulations again for the honorable mention. Do you have any questions from the audience? I have a really quick question because I'm playing this penguin idol game. I don't know if you guys, my Twitter handle is Arctic Penguin, so I really love penguins. And one of the reasons I play is because the aesthetics are just so beautiful and calming, and I was wondering if that's anything that you saw in some of your themes.
Well, the first one that had like this aesthetic, and it carried through a little bit, like through the genre. But you do have moments where there are then visual things, and you have it on the more commercially oriented side, which is a lot of it's very busy than usually. But what I really liked for precisely the same reason, just in playing, was Space Plan, because it was really calming, and also it has an end; it lets you go.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Adrian Schneider from Queen's University, and I was wondering, it seems like it's kind of a fuzzy logic, like semi-relatedness, but games where you have to wait for points to rack up before you can do anything, but when they're not racking up, the game itself is idle. So would that count as partly an idle game, or does that not fall under the umbrella?
That's me. So when you're not playing, nothing's happening?
Well, you can those games that try to scam you into giving them money, like you build a building and it takes 8 days to finish, but if you pay a coin now, it finishes instantly.
Right. We've usually thought about those as not really falling into idle games, right? Because the mechanic is more around like spending money as a form of play, and less about sort of handing off like control and experience of the game to the game engine to just kind of do its thing. So,
can I add?
Yeah.
So Kiev and Richardson, I think, talked about that also at length, and like how the community of players actually really frowns upon paying to play, and is really like engaging with the experience of waiting to play. Like it's also like a status negotiation.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hi, Oliver Scholten, University of York. I was just wondering if you had any figures off the top of your head of how popular these games are. I was just curious.
No, that was not something that I was interested in, and so I didn't let anyone else.
We mention it in the paper.
Oh, we mention it?
Yeah, I think there may be numbers. There might be numbers in the paper, because I feel like we may have had to like justify that to reviewers at some point, as to like why it mattered.
Oh yeah, and like please, anyone who has ever reviewed the paper, please read the acknowledgements. We really appreciate the 12 reviewers who were ultimately involved in this.
Our final presentation for the day is about peer feedback processes in the game industry, and Eric will be presenting on behalf of his team.
Cool. All right, so first of all, I want to acknowledge Joseph and Ray as sort of co-first authors of this paper. They did the majority of the cat herding and the data analysis and the writing of the actual thing, and they wrote a really great paper that I have struggled mightily to fit into 10 minutes. So I highly recommend you check it out. There's a lot of really awesome, nice, minute detail in there.